Hey guys, it's Gretchen from Gretchen's Bakery, and we are back with the second edition of Ask the Bakers. I have teamed up with some of my great friends and baking YouTubers to answer your baking questions. Today, I'll be helping you with the basics of how to write on cakes, but be sure to click the links at the end of this video so you can go check out the other channel's questions that you see listed here. And if you have a question that you want answered, leave it in the comments below and maybe your question will get answered next.
You know, I think oftentimes I might take for granted some of the things that I just do day in and day out and don't really have to put a thought to it. One of those things being how to write on cakes. And I know for beginners though, this is one of the areas where a lot of people really get tripped up. Now, I do have a little backstory here because, as many of you may know, I owned a bakery for 10 years. And one of the tasks of the people who I'd hire to come work in my store would be for them to learn how to write on cakes, because at any moment a customer could walk in the door, say, hey, give me that cake out of the case, and could you write happy birthday on it? And I think probably the biggest pitfall for people writing on cakes is that sometimes you have a 7-inch cake and sometimes you have an 8-inch cake and sometimes you have a sheet cake to write on. And so it's really just adjusting your font, I should say. I mean, how big you're writing. And well, there's a couple of tricks that I'm going to just point out, so let's just get right to it. There's a couple of different ways that you can go about writing on cakes. One of my favorite ways is by using chocolate. I just think it's very elegant looking. You can get very fine detail by using melted chocolate. Another way is by using buttercream. And I do have some buttercream here. I colored it bright pink so that you guys could see it. And of course, with that, you will need either a pastry bag fitted with, I usually do a number 2, a Tico tip. I find that the number 1 can oftentimes be too thin when you're using buttercream. You might get a little tiny grain of sugar in there. Or you can go ahead and do a parchment paper cone. And if you guys are part of my Best Baker Club at GretchensBakery.com, I showed you guys the tricks on how to make parchment paper cones. Invaluable in the pastry kitchen. So pick your bag, whichever way you want to do it. I'm going to show you guys both ways. But as you see here, I also do have different pan sizes. And that's probably the best way to really practice, because let's say you're making a 6-inch cake for someone. Well, you can practice writing on that 6-inch cake. The same thing goes if it's a 7-inch cake, or an 8-inch cake, or a 10-inch cake, or even sheet cakes. So really, I find that this is the best way to really teach yourself how to adjust how big you're writing, how much spacing that you have. And if you mess up, you could just wipe it right off and start over versus doing it on a real cake. I'm going to start with my plastic wrapped cardboard. So as you can see with the chocolate in the paper cone, you can do really fine piping work. So I think the number one problem people have when they first attack how to write on cakes is that they think they're writing on a piece of paper with a pen or a pencil. You do not want to touch your tip, whether it's a pastry bag tip or the paper cone, to the cake. I'm going to do it again, and I want you to notice how far away I am actually from the actual cake. I let the chocolate run out and I just guide it. I have found that so many people want to hold the bag almost like a pencil, and they want to direct it, and you really aren't doing it that way. You are holding it probably a 1/4 inch away from the surface of the cake. You're letting the chocolate flow out naturally. Maybe a little bit of pressure on the end of the pastry cone to let the chocolate help flow out, but you're going to control that pressure. And so this is really where the practice comes in. You guys really shouldn't get discouraged if the 1st or 5th or 10th or 20th time it's not that great. It really is just like a lot of things in pastry art, is that it just takes practice. So now let's get to the buttercream writing on cakes. And that's going to be a little bit different, but not really that much different. Buttercream obviously is not as viscous and liquid as chocolate would be, so you're definitely going to have to control the pressure a lot more than the gravity of just letting the chocolate run out. So I'm not really sure which way is harder or easier. I think that's a personal preference, a personal opinion. So you guys decide which way you like better. So it's basically the same kind of idea, only I'm pressing on the pastry bag a lot more than I had to when I was doing the chocolate writing. Buttercream, in my opinion, is a little bit heavier. It's not really as delicate as the chocolate writing would be. Let's go for a different word. One of my favorite ones to write, and probably one of the least favorite for my employees, was anniversary, because it is a long word, and if you have a small cake, you could end up getting to the edge before you've even finished your word. So that's another thing to keep in mind, is to really just try to envision your spacing. And again, it's just really practice. Once you get into doing bigger cakes, if you're used to writing on small cakes, you're gonna have this massive sheet cake with a tiny little happy birthday on it. So it's really just, you know, trying to visualize with the space that you're working with. And really what I would often do too is sort of just do it, like just do the motion of it to see where I should stop and start. You see how I'm not even putting any buttercream, but I'm giving myself an idea of how much space I do have. And I think that's probably one of the harder things, is really just knowing how much space you have, learning what style of writing is from you, because just like in handwriting, everybody has a different style. And that brings me to my one last point, is do I print or do I script? And that, again, is a personal preference. Whatever you find looks nicer. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but on my happy anniversary one, I do a combination of script and print. And what's funny about that is that I actually write that way too when I'm writing on paper. I just sort of kind of meld the two together, and so that has become my personal style for writing on cakes. So if you print nicely, definitely go for it. If your script isn't all that, then stay away from it. I do a combination of the two, and I think it works for me. I'll do one more. Thanks for tuning in here to Gretchen's Bakery to learn how to write on cakes. Thanks for checking out our Ask the Bakers collaboration, which I think is a really cool idea, because oftentimes, like I said, we really do take for granted some of the things that we just do every day and don't even think about it. So keep those questions coming. Get to gretchensbakery.com for all the best recipes, and I will see you guys soon.
Don't forget to check out these other great channels, and remember, if you have a question of your own, list it below in the comments section, or simply hashtag AskTheBakers on Facebook or Instagram. Happy baking! Bye for now.